recording started so I don't forget. Hey, Dr. Ravis.
Good evening. How are you?
Been putting out. It's been another busy day. A busy day. It's been a good day. I had a big review on a grant today. I had to meet with the group, but it turned out well. Got raving reviews on it, so I'm good.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I feel good about that. So, but anyway, uh, let me see how many we got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm missing 2 people. Okay, I want to see. Let me see. Just say I got Melissa. I've got is Heather here? I see
Yes,
Heather.
sir.
I see Heather, yeah. Keisha.
I'm here.
Okay, hey Keisha. Okay, Kristen here.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey Kristen, I see you. Okay. Terrence is here. Sparkle's not here. I knew she was not going to be here. Okay. Brenda. I'm looking. I don't see Brenda. Okay, maybe she'll join in. Amanda's here. Michelle's here. I saw them. Anna Macy's here. Leanne's here. Is Nicole here? Yeah, I see.
Yes,
you.
sir. I'm here.
I see you, Nicole. Lisa's
Thank you.
here. Robin's here. Shaquita's here, and Becca's here. Okay, gotcha. Okay, we're accounted for. Okay. Welcome to week 3. I know it's been a busy week for you, a busy weekend for you. Trying to meet all my demands for getting that task 1 done. But for the most part, I would say that 85% of you are there. And it may be more than that. I've just got to see what that final, when you send it for that final review before I give you a grade, then I'll be able to determine more basically where everybody is. But I realize that week 1 is a learning curve. You know, it was your first big responsibility for me. However, I will tell you, task 1's the easiest task you're ever going to do. Okay? But it prepares you for the rest of the task because basically the format is going to be the same, but how you approach each task is going to be differently. So that's important. Now, a big reminder. Dr. Lamb addressed this at the very beginning. He talked about time commitment for this program. Remember, you are in an accelerated program. You're completing 5 semesters in 3 semesters. So there's no slowing down to it. And when a task is due, that means you cannot procrastinate. You've got to plan wisely. That's part of the leadership role in this. You've got to plan wisely, and you can't put it off, because if you do, what's going to happen is, honestly, you can get 1 week behind and you never catch up. You cannot do that. And again, I'm treating you like principals already because that's the role that you're moving into. So my expectations for you with this program are no differently than if you were already in a school and you were having to submit work to the superintendent's office. That's how I am addressing this, and those are my expectations. I'm going to push hard, but I'm already getting you there. Already I see where some of you are making the turnaround. And Michelle made this comment. She said, I am already understanding why my principal says some of the things she says and does some of the things she does. She said, where before I had no I didn't understand why. She said, I'm already beginning to understand. And I'm sure that that's the case should be the case for all of you, but for most of you, that should already be the case. Now, another thing is you must, when I tell you to do something, you've got to do it. You cannot say, well, I'm going to do it. That song, I'm going to have it my way. You can't have it my way in this program. You got to do it Dr. Stebbins' way or Dr. Revis's way. So, you've got to think about that. And again, I'm going to give you the tough love, but that's the only way that I'm going to get you, to that next step. And already many of you are already getting there. And remember, we told you 3 or 4 weeks that it would all start coming together, and that the big picture should start. You should be able to see that now, begin to see that, and especially when you get into task 2 this week, you will see how it all starts connecting. It's almost like a seamless highway, and that's the way it should be. I'm going to talk about the AAPSL a little bit more, but I want Dr. Revis to greet you before I move forward.
Well, good evening, guys, and welcome to week 3. We promised you that first week that if you would hang with us through week 3, and well, really week 4, that you would get this down pat, as Dr. Stebbins has already talked about, you being able to get in the routine and how we do things when things are due and that kind of thing. And I promise you, you will get this. So welcome to week 3.
Okay, before we get any further, Sparkle, how is the cruise? I didn't expect to see you online tonight. You having a good time?
I am. The service kind of sucks, so keep going in and out.
Well, but I would love to be where you are. But anyway, welcome. And Brenda showed up. Hey, Brenda. Let me share the screen, and I want to just. And this is under week 3 in Blackboard as well for you. Can everybody see that? This is what this evening is going to look like. I'm going to give some comments about AAPSL Task 1 and your peer reviews. Revitz is going to just give some brief APA reminders. We're going to review Task 2. Dr. Revitz is going to talk about the internship part 1, and then we're going to it's not on there, but I may just introduce, not go over it, but just show you again Task 3, so that as you're doing Task 2, you can see how it's going to flow into Task 3. But that's what this evening is going to look like. And Dr. Revis, I have changed the format a little bit with saving all the questions to the end. However, we're gonna pause after each task just to make sure that you're ready to move on to the next. But again, while we're talking, if you would hold your question, if you have one, until we're completely through and we say, are there any questions before we move on? Is that fair? Okay. Let me talk about AAPSL Task 1. Let me talk to you about what the biggest problems were. Now, you see this finger is your trigger finger. I know what it's like. You got trigger happy, and you wanted to press that button to submit before you really needed to have submitted it for submit. And I don't want you to do that. I want it on time, but don't short yourself with the quality work that you need to submit by submitting it before it's ready to submit. Now, Dr. Revis, I was pretty lenient this time with my feedback, and I will, and I'm not going to continue to give you feedback. but I'm not going to spend the amount of time that I spent continuously addressing things that you as master students already and educators should know. And that is dealing with grammar. I shouldn't have to address grammar. Now, we all make mistakes sometimes, but it should not be a lot of mistakes. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about your spelling, your punctuation, mainly comma usage. Look at sentence structure. Make sure that they're complete sentences. Now, mind you, grammar is not going to be everybody's strength. And if you know it's not your strength, then you find a peer at your school, somebody that you trust, or somebody in your home. There may be somebody in your home that's good at, and just say, look, before I submit this to Dr. Stebbins for him to look at, I need you to look at it, and I need you to treat it just like you were an English teacher and you're grading it for grammar. Sometimes we have to do that. Another pair of eyes can see what we can't see sometimes. Okay? So that is that going into this week, task 2, I do not expect to see major grammar errors like I saw this week because I want you to take care of it before it gets to me. Okay? Fair? Okay. Secondly, you must follow the template. And again, remember, I told you that whatever is in black stays. If it's in yellow, you've got to do narrative work. But what did I tell you to do with that yellow highlighting when it's all over with? After you've done it, what did I tell you to do with that yellow highlighting?
Get rid of it.
I told you to get rid of it. So this week, I shouldn't have to put out in the margins, delete yellow highlighting. Okay? And if it's red, that means that those are suggestions. Once you've looked at that, you get rid of it. The only thing I should see is the black print. Now that will change when you start putting your graphics in there, but that's different. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your narrative work. So that's something that I should not see this week. The other thing we gave you, you've got your template. Follow the template as it is. Remember, I told you that I only wanted to see, did I say to put task 1 on there and then leave all that other stuff on what you submitted to me? What did I say, Heather?
You said to remove the other stuff.
I said remove everything else. Only show me one task at a time. Now, task 1's going to be over this week. When you submit task 2 for review, should I see task 1 with task 2? No. I only should see task 2. I told you that at the end of the AAPSL, I would tell you how to go back and put it all together to submit for one task for a final review before it's evaluated. Okay. The next thing is we gave you helpful hints. And in that, remember, we said that it aligns with your template, and it tells you step by step what you are supposed to do. Don't deviate from that. You must include everything that I tell you in there to do. Everything should be in there. Not one thing should not be in there. You have to follow it. Remember, you're leading a PLC, so you are meeting with your PLC at least one time a week, every week for the first few weeks. Okay? It doesn't have to be an hour meeting, 2-hour meeting. Some of them are going to be longer than others, but you must meet with them. You must lead. You are the leader of that PLC. But you've got to follow the formatting. Your headings must be up there right. You must indent paragraphs. You must double space. You must you must put your in-text citations in there correctly that Dr. Revis is going to mention again in just a minute. And remember, after you do task 1, task 2, each of the headings, after each of the headings are done, remember your reference section must be there. The title is references. You must put them together alphabetically according to APA. Everything is double spaced. And then after that comes your appendices. Appendices is your heading, centered. And then after the heading appendices comes each appendix that you have put in there. Now, when you center the word appendix A or appendix, whatever it is, then if you give a description of that appendix, then where do you align that narrative or that statement? Where do you align it? Is it centered or is it to the left? Somebody tell me.
To the left?
It's to the left. That's right. So those are things that you must fix. Remember, I said that as much as possible, always include a picture of you presenting, because that is proof that you are leading your PLC as well. So those are some takeaways from task 1. Your peer reviews. I've got to figure out why I don't have some of them in there. Some of them went through beautifully. Some have said I've graded and give comments, and I believe you, but I got to figure out why it's not showing up unless, Dr. Revis, unless you have submitted it under the APTEL and not the AAPSL, which happens sometimes. I will go back in there and figure it out, and then and I'll discuss that later on. But overall, the peer reviews have been excellent overall. I would remind you, though, when you do your peer review, everything is not always hunky-dory. Everything is not always touchy and feely. You want to point out and accentuate the good stuff, but that rubric weakness is in there for a reason. And you must be clear about it. Now, I was tough on a few of you about, you telling somebody that everything was perfect or what. Guess what? It wasn't perfect. My review was nothing like what your review was, because it wasn't perfect. I sent it back with a lot of things that need to be corrected. So if I need you to be transparent with them, say it in a very professional way, but you can't skirt around things. You've got to, if there's an issue there, I need you to point it out. And guess what? You're going to find that sometimes I might deliberately leave something in a review to see if in the peer reviews, if the two people that's supposed to be reviewing catch it. And it will be an obvious something when I do that. So I will try to trap you once in a while, because I want to see if you're doing what you're supposed to do. But overall, very, very pleased with them. So Dr. Revis, I'm going to stop sharing at this point, and then I'm going to let you talk to them with anything that you need to remind them about APA before we move further.
Okay, so when Dr. Stebbin and I talked, and we talk a lot, we talked about the most common errors that he found. Guys, you've got to learn how to do in-text citations. Okay, so in looking at this first sentence, we're going to go through it together. In the first sentence, who can tell me one error in the first sentence?
Come on, somebody unmute.
Mandy,
Yes, ma'am.
can you tell me one error that you see there?
I'm not 100% sure, but the only thing that I really see is, well, I see to a punctuation issue after the word important. Because there's two punctuations. But the other thing that I'm genuinely curious about is how they have stated Lawrence, and I'm not sure the pronunciation of the last name, and then they reference it again, and then they've got the first name.
Right. You don't need the first name. That should not be there. And this is actually called a narrative citation because you're citing that author narratively, just right in the sentence. And last name and parentheses date. If you use it here, then you don't put it here. Okay. So that would go out. All right. If you use it narratively, you don't use it at the end, and that's called a parenthetical. The same rule applies whether it is narrative or at the
Say
end.
it again.
You do not use last names, first names, excuse me. If everybody could mute, please.
Just said it.
All right, this next sentence. We've got a quote.
Dr. Rivas, unmute yourself.
I did. We've got a direct quote. So what must we have in our citation with a direct quote?
Paragraph or page number.
Very good. Now, where would that go? Well, excuse me, you can put it at the end, but guys, just get in the habit of put it right here. When you cite your date, put your page 255, whatever. All right. Okay, the next sentence. The Wallace Foundation 2013, that's fine. And Waters, Marzano, and McNulty 2003. What is wrong with that second citation right here?
Too many names?
Yeah.
Yes,
Shouldn't it be at all?
it's at all. Very good. Agreed that the characteristics, da, 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 da. And is there anything wrong with this reference to your figure?
Lowercase c.
Yes, lowercase here on your C. And I see this a lot. People will put a period here and then a period at the end. Remember your, this is like a little reference, or if a citation comes at the end, your period goes after that. Okay? You've got to learn how to do in-text citations. The other thing you have to learn how to do are your references. Notice everything is double spaced. Okay? This is an entire reference. I know very quickly when I look at it, I know that this is a title of a journal article because it's in plain text, regular text. Notice only the first word, a word after a colon or a semicolon, or any proper nouns are going to be uppercase. Everything else is lowercase, period. The title of the journal is in italics, comma, and that's volume, issue, and your page range. And if it has a DOI, you will put that as well. I know very quickly this is a book because I have the title of the book in italics. Titles of books and journals are in italics. And of course, you've got your author date. That's how it always is in APA, author date. And then you put the publisher. Okay. Capitalization. Make sure that if you're in doubt, do not capitalize. That's my rule of thumb. If you're in doubt, do not capitalize. But you're going to be starting to write about your end of grade test scores or end of course test scores. And so if it is a published test or measures or their subscales, you're going to capitalize this whole word, this whole phrase, and you would capitalize the word test because that is in part of the title of the test. And these are the most frequently used ones that you're going to use in task 2. In task 1, remember when you were listing your PLC selection, you do not capitalize the job title or position as it follows a name. And I believe numbers, you had a few issues with numbers. This is where that can be found in your APA manual. Use words to express numbers below 10 and numerals to express numbers 10 and above. And typically you do not begin or end a sentence with a number or numeral. And I believe those were the most common
Yes.
errors, Dr. Stedman. Did I
Right.
miss anything?
No, and remember, on Thursday, you have a checklist. Remember, we said to make copies of that checklist, use it. Before you submit your work, go back over it. Have I done this? Have I done this? And look at everything and do your self-analysis of your work before you even submit it. So you need to get in the habit of that. Thank you, Dr. Revis. Before we move on,
Any questions on APA?
or task 1, because remember, we're at a point now that if you haven't, you're submitting task 1 once you have gotten your peer review, 2 peer reviews. You should have gotten 2. If you didn't, you need to communicate with your group and find out why you have not, and then beyond that, you need to communicate with me. But your 2 peer reviews, consider that, and then once you are satisfied with all their review, you must address what I have said. Then you can submit it to me for your final review, and then I will look at it. Already, I have told one, was it Kristen? Kristen, didn't you submit yours?
Yes.
Yes, and Kristen's, I've already graded hers. She turned it in, and so hers has been cleared this afternoon. I think, Mandy, I think yours. I told you could do yours as well, and you've just got to submit it. So theirs will be ready, and then they can move on to task 2 with no problem. We need to go ahead and get this knocked out, get it to me. I will go ahead and get it cleared. Let you submit it for a final grade and move on to task 2. So you should know what to do now. But now there's a couple that I need to really look at the work because there were a lot of problems. And I've got to make sure you cannot move on to task 2, and you have to move on to it until I've cleared you with task 1. Okay, so if that's you, then you know what my email to you have said. Another thing, I've asked and asked and asked, if you have not done enrollment verification activity, EVA, I need it done tonight before you go to bed. So you go back in there and you do it if you haven't done it. Any questions about task 1 before we move on? Because task 1 is going to be history.
Dr. Stedman, I did the verification. Dr. Stedman, I
Yes.
did the verification, but it's no longer showing. I had a yes and it's gone.
Okay, we'll go back and do it again, Nicole, because it's never shown for
Did
me.
you hear me?
You're not the only one, but I
Okay.
need just go back and go back and do it again, okay? Because it's never shown for me.
Okay, because I didn't get an email from you about that until today because it had been done.
No, I've sent several emails, so I don't know where your emails have gone. But anyway, just fix it, okay?
I just checked them just now, but we'll talk later. We'll
Okay.
talk later.
Thanks, Nicole. Okay. Let's move on. I'm going to share my screen again. And we're going to go back to, let me see, let's go to the helpful hints. Okay. 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 At this point, you've completed task one for the most part. You've completed it. And that means that at this point, you have met with your PLC. You've got your team together. You've talked to them about the mission of what you're doing. So your next job is that you've got to get into the meat of what the PLCs are all about. So that's where task 2 begins. Your heading's going to be data collection strategies. Data collection strategy. You're going to lead your selected PLC team to determine the strategies that you're going to use to collect the data to determine the most pressing need for improving student achievement. Remember, everything you're doing now is about student achievement. It's not about behavior. It's not about discipline, behavior. What was the other one, Dr. Revis?
Attendance.
Attendance. Those are not things that it must be dealing with student achievement, and there must be the thought process that a test is going to measure something because you're going to need it later on, like your EOG, your EOC, or something of that nature. Look at this. Look at this example. Data collection strategies, and this is just an example. This person says, when I first asked for permission to form a PLC, my principal suggested the team and I look at the 8th grade math data. Now, your principal may do that. They may say, you need to look at reading. That's okay. You can say that. However, you for the purposes of this project, you cannot camp out there at this point. You've still got to do all the work, even if you come back to what your principal said, because you've got to present to them what you and your team finds. They go on to talk about that they set up a PLC meeting, and at this time it was during COVID, so they set it up via Zoom, but you're going to meet with your team. And they're talking about the data points. The first data point that we used was from our school's North Carolina report card. That's always a good place to go. An important strategy with this data was observations and drawing conclusions from those observations. And the most recent data from EVOS, and Dr. Lamb is going to do a full review of what EVOS is and what it's all about, the value of it, on Thursday evening. They went on to talk about other things that they could use. The whole premise of this is that whatever, Nicole, you're at a high school. So you're at a high school, right? Okay, you're at a high school. You're at a high school, I thought. Okay. So, high school, sometimes high school data is going to be different than elementary school data. Elementary school data is going to be different than some middle school data. So whatever assessments are at your school, you're going to pull all of those assessments so that you can lay everything out on the table. So, Nicole, I'm going to use you again as an example. I think you teach CTE, right?
Yes, sir.
You're in
Yes.
CTE. Okay. But CTE, while you've got to look at CTE, you've got to look at biology, you've got to look at English, you've got to look at math, you've got to look at those other areas as well. So, Nicole's going to bring to the table everything that affects the high school where she works. You need to
I
have
listed all of the EOCs in my, yes.
right. So you're going to put all of that together. And so, so you've got to determine if you're at an elementary school, somebody that works at an elementary school, talk to me about some of those assessments at the elementary school. Besides EOG.
Map testing.
Map testing. What's something else?
In class.
benchmark testing,
In-class benchmark testing. What's something
Reading
else?
level,
Do what?
reading level.
Reading level. What about dibbles?
Yeah, amplified
With our
dibbles.
class.
Yeah. Anything else? Somebody? Something
Quiz
else?
mastery, connect.
Yeah, that's it. Something else.
Right now we're using a program. It's called Classworks, and they have to
Right.
do 3 yearly assessments with
Right.
Classwork.
Right. So you would use that. Now, Alyssa may have that at her school. Macy may not have it at her school, but Alyssa would use that when she pulls it all together. So you pull together comprehensively. Everything serves as a way that's going to give you data at that school. And again, as the leader of your group, you pull stuff in. But then let's say, for instance, Becca teaches 6th grade, but she's got a 1st grade teacher on her team. Well, the 1st grade has assessments that Becca's not even going to be working with. So Becca may say, can you bring thus and so to the table? It's okay to do that. To get people to bring stuff to the table that you don't normally work with or have immediate access to. That will help you out as the leader. So, work smart with these things too. But your first job is to talk about what are you going to bring to the table? Everything comprehensively. Now, once you get it, you got to do something with it. Your heading is criteria and process for identifying the most pressing need. Now, you may think you know, but you don't know yet. The principal may have suggested this, but you still don't know what the most pressing need is. Now, once the team and you have determined the strategies for collecting data, you're going to decide what criteria and what process will be used for identifying the most pressing need. The narrative work for this selection will discuss the criteria and the process. Now let's look at what that can look like. When our PLC initially met for the first time, we discussed analyzing the current data that was available in order to observe trends that stood out to us. Okay, when you look at trends, that's an important word. As you look at the data, you're looking at trends, but you're looking at trends with school-wide overall, but you're looking at subgroups. Because sometimes, and Dr. Lamb, they will point this out on Thursday night with EVOS, you can determine, did you know that 10 people, if you can turn 10 people in a subgroup around, that can change you from being a low-performing school to a high-performing school or meet high growth. Sometimes it's only 10 people that can make a difference. So you've got to look at those subgroups. So you're gonna look at trends with. You're gonna look at again. I'm gonna say Becca teaches 6th grade. There may have been Becca may be the only one that has remained in 6th grade for the last 5 years. There could be a turnover in 6th grade. So the trend is that there's been a turnover with teachers. So it's like starting all over again in 6th grade. So 6th grade math may be a problem. You're beginning to look at all of this stuff. The second step was to put the data that was collected alongside one another to observe the similarities and the differences. The third step was to identify the lowest performing data between math and English language arts. And finally, we agreed to examine the subgroups of the most pressing and need identified to decide whether we would focus on a specific subgroup, grade level, or content area as a whole across the 3 grade levels that they looked at. So the thing, everybody's going to do it approach it a little bit differently, and that's okay. But the thing is, you've got all the puzzle pieces on the table, and you've got to start looking at the puzzle pieces, and that's the data that you've pulled, and you just simply talk about it. And then the third thing is your heading is collaborative data analysis. And this word is so important, collaborative. That means that Alyssa's not going to do it by herself. She's got to do it with a team. That's where your team comes in. Now, once steps 1 and 2 have been completed, the team and you will take a detailed look of all data that has been gathered. You should thoroughly disaggregate the data by looking at all groups, subgroups, etc. Make sure you cover every angle possible. And that's where your team's going to help out, because what, and I'm saying their names, what Heather sees may not be what Becca sees, but what Becca sees may not be what Heather sees. So everybody can bring something to the table as you're disaggregating all this data. And this is what it talks about. Our second PLC meeting met to evaluate and analyze the data that had been identified from the North Carolina report card, as well as EVOS. In reviewing this data, it was evident that our most pressing need was in mathematics. A member of the PLC brought up the fact that the 8th grade math team has been new almost every year as well, which may have contributed to the negative trends. As a school, both content areas perform below both the district and the state. However, English language arts has met growth consistently in previous years and outperforms mathematics in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. This is a middle school. So if it has met growth consistently, then automatically that should cause you to divert back to the problem in math, because you're doing some good stuff there, and you've got a PLC working with that already. But your focus has got to be where you're not meeting growth. So what the principal said basically is true, but you had to determine that. And this goes on to talk about that. And you see the statistics in there that they have provided, 47%. And you validate it with actual information, and you don't have to create that. That information is going to be in the reports from the report card. You should be able to pull what you need there. Then once you've done all that, you've pulled it every which way you can pull it. There's nothing left. You've disaggregated everything. Then your heading is most pressing need. You're going to talk about it, your most pressing need based on the collaborative data analysis. And the narrative work for this section will identify the most pressing need and why. Now that's what you may, it shouldn't repeat everything but you may refer to it. But in this, it says our PLC determined during the second meeting that the most pressing need was 8th grade mathematics, as mentioned earlier. And then it's going to talk about why, that is a most pressing need. But you've got to say, our most pressing need as determined by the PLC is. And then you say why you as a team determined that. That's what the rest of that narrative is. Now, Dr. Revis, okay, before we go any further, Dr. Revis is going to talk about prompt 2. Does anybody have any questions about what you've got to do with prompt 1? Do you understand the process? Is it clear? Okay. Dr. Revis, will you talk about what they have to do next once they've completed the narrative work and they know what their most pressing need is? What do they have to do next with prompt 2?
Okay, so in prompt 2, guys, and you will see this a lot in our different tasks. Prompt 1 is the narrative work, and prompt 2 is where you're going to say it, you're going to show the same thing that you talked about in prompt 1, but you're going to show it graphically. Now, you can't just put it full of charts or tables or graphs and just put them out there by themselves and think that tells the story. You have to use a little narrative to introduce a table or a chart or a graph. Now, we call all of those in this program figures. Okay. If you were in a doctoral program, we would determine some would be tables, some would be figures, etc. But all of those are going to be figures. And so, again, let's go look at our part of does it have the example at the bottom of this?
It does. I'm going, let me, Dr. Revis, let me pull the completed example and do that.
Okay.
Okay, remember, once you do this, you always have your references, APA style, and you always have your appendices. Now, your appendices, the figures that you're putting in here, you don't need to put them here and then put them down here. Your appendices is going to be anything that you're not, that you refer to, that is not up there. But you don't need to put figures here and then turn around and put them down here at the bottom again. Okay? This will be your agenda, your picture of you presenting, other things that are not included up there. So I'm going to, let me pull up the completed, here's the example. Okay.
And guys, use these examples. Your work should follow very closely to what you see here.
Okay, here it goes, Dr. Revis. This is
Okay, so
okay, go ahead.
you start out with the data presentation. I think that's in the template. And you're going to have to do a presentation of the data that you looked at, and you're sharing your most pressing need to your principal, at least your principal. Now, if your principal is part of your PLC, then you don't have to do a separate presentation.
But you have to say it.
Right. You need to say it very clearly because your evaluators are going to look for that. Did you share the results of your PLC meeting, your data dive, and your most pressing need with your principal? So again, here's figure 1, and there is a figure number, and then there's a title to that figure, and that title is in italics. Now, I think this person probably just went to the school report card and did a screenshot of this chart, and that's fine. You can do that. I personally like to see where it says note. I personally only like to see down there information that is for interpretation purposes, because in my opinion, the summary table shows ELA performance for the 22-23 school year and the percentage of increase from the previous school year. It reports the performance compared to KES. In my opinion, that needs to go as narrative introducing the figure. We're not going to get all hung up on that though, but you cannot just put a figure there without any explanation.
And Dr. Revis, that means that you can have something here. You have to have something here, but you don't necessarily have to have this here. And you don't, and again, if you say what you need to say there, what Dr. Revis is saying, this is really not necessary most if you say it right up here.
Okay? We did not get that picky with our students, and I don't think the evaluators will either. But if you just put that table out there or that figure out there by itself with no explanation, they don't know what it is. Okay, and then here's figure 2. Again, they put their explanation in the note. Figure 3. And so they are just using, this is some growth data, I believe. They are just using the data that they narratively talked about in prompt 1,
right,
and showed it graphically in prompt 2 with some explanation.
Now notice figure is aligned to the left. It's not centered. So don't, note that already, that you align this to the left. And then it goes on to talk about, and then they didn't just put stuff up there. What did they do at the very end, Dr. Revis?
Well, you always need to summarize at the very end. I like to see at the very end, I like to see a summary, not as thorough, but a summary of, again, once the meeting concluded, the principal and I met separately. I like to hear something about your meeting with the principal. And I like to also have the most pressing need reiterated in this summary paragraph.
Okay. Let me stop share. Okay. Questions about what you've got to do this week. Now, again, this week, you must complete task 1 of the app. So you must submit that for a final grade and go ahead and get it over with. Don't wait until Sunday. Get it over with and let me go ahead and clear you with that. So at this point, this is what you should have. Everybody should have their contact information, 1 point. You should have the AAPSL Task 1 for peer and instructor review. You could get up to 50 points on that. Up to 50 points. So if I haven't done your final review on it, that's when I'll give you the final grade. And if you've done what you're supposed to do, you will get your final review will be anywhere from 40 to 50 points. But if you've done what you're supposed to do. And then you should have 2 peer reviews already for AAPSL Task 1 that will have been submitted for grade. And I'll figure out for those of you that said that you've turned yours in, and I know you're right because I remember looking at some of them. We'll find out why that grade is not in there. And the worst case scenario, I'll tell you got to submit it to me again. So I'll let you know that. But go ahead and get that over with. So that means that what will I have due to Dr. Stedman no later than 6 o'clock on Sunday evening? Task 2 for review. By Sunday afternoon at 6 o'clock. Do I have to wait until 6 o'clock? No. If you get it to me, I think you've already learned. I give you pretty quick feedback, don't I? Turnaround is pretty fast. So, and once I know you've got the hang of it and you've cleared up my issues with APA and grammar and other stuff, I won't be so stringent about you can't submit this until. Once I get comfortable with you and I know what you're doing, I can relax on that, but I can't yet. I'm not at that place to do that yet. So, but get it to me as soon as you can. Go ahead and schedule your meeting and get this done. Remember, you need to go into that meeting prepared, planned out and prepared. But you need to go ahead and make it happen. Okay? Any questions about task 2? And Dr. Revis, I'm not going to mention task 3. I don't think I need to do that tonight.
I have a question.
Okay.
I understand that you want us to explore all areas, math, reading, science. And if it shows that our greatest need is in math area, but our principal wants us to focus on reading, how do we handle that?
You just say that, and you present that to the principal, and you just say, now, this is what we found. And the principal said, and then you say that in there. We presented to the principal. We determined that the most pressing need is, however, the principal felt that that we would benefit most by doing blah, blah, blah. And then you explain that and you move on with that. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
So, like, my subgroup's already been decided based off of data
because it wasn't actually by my PLC. It was based off of what my principals and our InduStar plan. So, will I just need to go back and show that
Well,
proof?
you still got to go through the process, Leanne, and
Okay.
you've got to prove it. You've
Yeah.
got to prove that that is a need. And if it shows up that something else is the need, do like I just told Michelle. You got to say, we found that so and so is the most pressing need. However, my principal has determined that based on, InStar subgroup or whatever, that this is what our PLC will be focusing on. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions? Dr. Evans, before we close out tonight, can you talk to them just a few minutes about their internship?
I sure will. And I wouldn't do this except for the fact that you are in week 3, and I just want to make sure that you have the information that you need. I'm going to go real quickly. This is under your left-hand tab, all the way at the bottom, MSA Clinical Internship Resources. Okay. And let me pull it up just very quickly. All right, I'm going to scroll down. It has for the 20-month, and then here is yours. Yours is the 12-month. All right, from the first from town hall, you've got to document. Not only do you do coursework, you've got to document 200 hours, fall and spring semesters. So it would be this spring, 100 hours this summer, and then 200 in the fall of clinical site-based experiences from the list of suggested activities logged by the candidate and clinical intern and signed off by your site mentor. So it went to 200 hours last semester. So we have tried to give you some ideas and are allowing you to document 100 hours from your evidence work. These 2 big tasks that we are doing this semester, the AAPSL and APTL. Okay. So let me show you how it's broken down. For task 1, you can document 10 hours. Task 2, 10 hours. Now you can't just put task 1 in 10 hours. I'll show you an example. You are documenting the activities that you did in task 1 at your school that's counting towards your clinical work.
In other words,
So-
leading your PLC.
Right. When you're doing your data dive, collecting your data, etc. So for the AAPSL, you can document 50 hours plus 5 hours in your competency folio, 55 hours a total. For your APTL, which we will do the second part of the semester, you can document 45 hours. 55 and 45 is 100 hours that we're going to allow you to use the work that you're doing on your major tasks for your clinical work. Okay. Now that leaves 100 hours that you've got to get in otherwise. If you have a planning period, you need to make sure that you are doing clinical hours. Whether it's clinical hours for your APSL or whether it's these remaining 100 hours. 70 hours have to come directly from leadership opportunities. Those are things where you are I like to think of it as you're doing what a principal would do. You're dealing with budget, you're dealing with parents, you're dealing with teacher issues, you're observing teachers, you are doing, you're leading groups of teachers, you are in a leadership role. 20 hours from technical knowledge, for example, sitting down with your bookkeeper and trying to understand how the books, purchase order, and budget, or you can even sit down with your principal and talk to them about budget, or your athletic director if you're in high school. 10 hours, no more than 10, coming from supervision. That's bus duty, car duty, basketball game duty, football game duty, whatever. All those supervision things, 10 hours is all you can document. And you have to document 100 hours by the end of week 7. We're in week 3. So let me show you how, if I can get out of this. Well, hold on. I'm going to have to minimize my screen, Dr. Simmons. I apologize.
It's okay.
Well, it is not letting me do what I want to do. Okay. I'm trying to get out of this document and go back, but I cannot. Let me stop share and go back out. I'll do it here. Okay. Now, this document is also at the same place. Remember, you scroll all the way down, and it's right before you get to the weeks. MSA Clinical Internship Resources. And I've done, here's your template. You use this template. You do not handwrite it. You have to type it. You have to put the date, describe the activity. You do not have to put the competency, nor do you have to put the proof. This is a documentation column for you in order for, let's say you need to save artifacts to tell you how you saved artifacts. You don't need to do these 2 columns, but you must do the hours. All right. This is a blank copy, and this is what you will use.
Dr. Revis, remind them that there's 3 areas. You told them already that one of them, the major one is leadership. That's an L. The other
Right.
is, okay, what
It's
are the other
technical,
2? Technical is a T.
knowledge.
So just
Mhm.
remember, leadership is L, technical knowledge is T, and then the other one?
Supervision.
That's S. On that list, when you list your activities, as you do it, determine and just put it in parentheses somewhere on there. If it's supervision, put an S. If it's technical, put a T. If it's leadership, put an L. That will help you. That will guide you in making sure that you've got the required. Just like Dr. Revis is showing right there. You can add a column in there if you want to for area to put that in there, and it will help you determine if you've got the hours that you need in each of those areas.
Now, look at how we have described the activity. Co-led new student orientation. Met with principal to discuss the scope of the AAPSL work, received permission, discussed PLC membership. That's an hour. Well, that was for this example. It may just be a half an hour. Research most recent school report card and accreditation report to use in the school profile of AAPSL Task 1. So you don't just put AAPSL Task 1. You describe what you did. You prepared an agenda, sent out invitations for your first PLC meeting. But that's not all. You've also got to get your other things in. Supervised home soccer game. You know, that was 2 hours. I can only get how many hours? 10 hours total. Okay.
And you don't want them all to be in the same thing.
Right. Then I worked with the school counselor on student scheduling changes for second semester. Then I worked with my Power School data manager to make sure the student lunch schedule was evened up. Then I developed my school profile for the AAPSL Task 1. You see how it's, you know, you do some things not related to your AAPSL, and then you'll do some things related to your AAPSL.
And let's
also,
use, for an example, Terrence is a guidance counselor at his school. I would not want Terrence to use what he does on a daily basis in his job for this internship log. Terrence needs to stretch himself. So Terrence, I would expect Terrence to be doing something else as it relates to leadership other than what he does on his job every day. Okay.
You notice you don't see anything in here about making lesson plans for your classroom or having a parent conference for one of your students. It's not about what you do in the classroom as a teacher or in the duties of your regular job. You've got to get outside of what you do on a daily basis. Unless you're already a school leader, all right? Principal or assistant principal. And anyway, I just wrote some things there. You always put your hours here. I'm going to save some artifacts and to help me because I'm going to need that when I build my competency folio. So anytime you go to a meeting, get in a meeting agenda. Anytime you attend any meeting, get in a meeting agenda. Get the easy things that lend themselves easily to artifacts. At the bottom, you total your hours and your supervisor must sign off on this. And the magic number, by the end of week 7, you're going to have 100 here. By the end of the semester, this will be 200.
And
it's a lot of work.
All of this does not come to me. All of this goes to Dr. Revis as your clinical coach too.
I will look at this, and I'm pretty tough on this because this talks about licensure right here. We have to certify that you have completed that clinical requirement. And again, it's leadership roles and duties and activities beyond your classroom or beyond your regular job, unless you're already an assistant principal or principal. Okay.
Dr. Revis, what I'm going to do next week as I put together the agenda, I won't have to spend a lot of time up front like I did today. I will briefly talk about task 2, and then we're going to move on into task 3. I will get task 3 covered. And then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Revis to bring closure to the internship. But this gives you something to be thinking about between now and next week, and then be ready to ask her questions, concerning that as well. But Dr. Revis, I would say about half the time next week, we can finish up with what we need to do on the internship so we can make sure there's a clear path for that as well. Okay.
So yeah, just be thinking about it as you go about your work. And again, recognizing you don't have your planning period to do planning for your regular job anymore. You've got to be spending it doing your clinical work.
Okay. Everybody, do you understand the path that you must take this week? You've got to get task 1 cleared for me with everything. And then you've got to submit task 2 for peer and instructor review no later than 6 o'clock on Sunday. That's this week. Everybody got it? If you got it, give me a thumbs up. Okay. Thank y'all so much. We're going to get there. Now, if you've got to clean up stuff for task one, get it cleaned up and get it cleaned up fast, okay? I need to see it fast so that you can move on. I don't want you behind. You
Dr.
can't
Rev-
get behind. Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna Dr. Revis, Dr. Stedman, before we end the evening, can I ask a quick question about the peer review Zoom meetings? At what point are those supposed to take place?
You're not going to do anything. What in I think it's week. We'll talk about it. We may introduce it next week. I hadn't thought about that. You're only going to do one Zoom meeting with the AAPSL, with your Zoom team. And at that point, you will talk about lessons learned from the AAPSL development up to that point. You'll help each other out with, the lessons learned, the challenges. And then you'll talk about as a team, those things that you've got to do to move forward with the AAPSL as well, the future AAPSL development. That's what that Zoom team's about, but you're not ready for that yet. We'll talk to you about it, okay? So you'll be good.
Revis, I have one question. As far as on our clinical IEP meetings, is that limited?
You're what now?
Attending IEP meetings with the principal? Are we limited on that?
Well, I would say if you are a special needs teacher, yes, most definitely. If that is part of your job as a special needs teacher. Now, if you're a regular classroom teacher or a school counselor or something like that, I would think you could sit in on 3 or 4 of those, but I wouldn't do more than 3, really.
And again, that's not going to be, let's say, for instance, one ended up being multiple hours. You could not accumulate all your hours just doing IEP meetings, okay?
And how about if I'm the school improvement chairperson and I lead those meetings? Can I count those as part of my time?
I think so.
Yes.
Think of the leadership roles that you have outside of your classroom. Okay.
Just remember, again, like Dr. Ravis said, you don't treat this as a classroom teacher. You teach it, you treat it all as an administrator. Okay. Everybody good? Okay, don't forget we have our final week 3 coaching session, not our final, week 3 coaching session this Thursday at 7 o'clock. Dr. Lamb is going to talk about EVOS. We're going to look at, he's going to begin looking, he may have your task stream accounts ready to talk about. But anyway, it's going to be completely Dr. Lamb, and then there'll be some supporting help with some of those topics as well. So please join in on Thursday at 7 o'clock. Okay. Okay.
Don't get discouraged. Give us one more week to get through this.
That's right.
Feel comfortable.
You're good. You're going to make it.
You're going to make it.
Okay. Thank you guys for all the hard work.
Dr.
Good
Stedman,
night.
Yes.
can you wait 1 second?
I can.
Thursday is my aspiring administrators next class.
That's
So,
okay. It'll be recorded.
okay. I
It'll
might
be-
can make it by 7:30, but I would only make it for the second half.
Well, come on in when you can. Okay.
Okay. All right.
When you
Thank
can.
you.
It'll still be recorded.
Okay.
Sparkle, it'll be recorded because I know you won't be back. Okay. You'll be okay.
Have fun, Sparkle.
What'd you say?
She said
Have fun.
Have fun.
Oh, thank you. Bye, y'all.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Nicole, hold on just a minute. Let me stop.